Okay, so welcome everybody to this Mongabay call with freelance journalists and other folks in our network who would like to learn how to pitch Mongabay and what kind of content we're looking for, how we take pitches, where we take pitches. I'm going to go over a few things that I have on this document here. I'm going to share my screen with you and just go over very briefly some of the basic steps that you need to take if you wanted to submit something for consideration to Mongabay, either a pitch or something sometimes people submit things they've written. So let me just bear with me as I share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. And we're just gonna start, I'm gonna start here at the top. If you can't see the screen that I'm sharing, just please unmute yourself and let me know and we'll try to help you. But I'm assuming everyone can see this. So number one, mongabay.org is kind of your go-to place for just all of this information is housed there in different places. And I've organized the info here in a way to just kind of go over very briefly just logistical things that I think tend to slow a lot of people down when they are thinking about how they could contribute, where they can contribute, where they might want to pitch, who the right editor is. Those are some of the most common questions that we get, and it's totally understandable because it takes time to learn how an organization works. So just at the top of this list here, again, on the mongabay.org website, and we'll share this list with everybody on this call afterwards, so you'll have it. It has hyperlinks to everything. The opportunities page, again, you can also enter this stuff, these phrases in Google and search like Mongabay opportunities page, Mongabay journalism programs, and it will come up with this these links also. The opportunities page kind of covers everything, our paid reporting opportunities, fellowships, internships, and etc. And then underneath that is more specific journalism programs, foreign language. Mongabay publishes in multiple languages. We translate between English and other languages both ways. Sometimes reporters even submit in two languages, in English and Spanish. That happens sometimes. So this gives the journalism programs, gives you a bit of sense of the overall kind of what we're doing related to journalism. And I think the most crucial part for this group and in this discussion is our open reporting projects that we have listed here. And each one of our reporting projects is overseen by typically a different editor, and our editors are spaced all around the world. So you can't really, one thing I just keep in mind is you can't really think of doing business with Mongabay in terms of a time zone, because we're totally global and our staff and folks we work with cover the entire, like every time zone. So it's good to think of Mongabay in terms of reporting projects. If you're pitching and want to, report and write articles, it's also good in terms of understanding kind of where our main focus is at any particular point in time, because we also list our closed projects on mongabay.org, like projects that were announced previous years and have, are now not running any longer. So we have roads and rail and islands, Southeast Asia, Sumatran rhinos, changing Africa. You see this list here. I'm going to go to global forests, and I'll share that screen with you guys. Global forests is one of the projects that I oversee. So it's easier for me to kind of discuss it a little bit. I'm having some technical problems. Sorry. Hang on one second. I don't know how to share this. Can you see the second screen of the Mongabay global reporting, global forests? Do you see it, Willie?
Yes, yeah,
great.
I see it, yeah.
So all of these announcements that Mongabay posts have about different reporting projects will typically have a few different portions. The title of the project, the reporting project, in this case, Global Forests, And then a brief description of just the impetus and goals of the project. Why, why are we doing this? Why is it important? Why does it matter now to cover tropical, global forests? And in this case, in this project, there's a list of about 11 countries. And you can see, they span a pretty wide range of places between South America, East and West Africa, and Southeast Asia. And so it's really critical, just this example of this one project, it's really critical to read these project descriptions very carefully and really understand what are we looking for, what are our priorities, and if there's a geographic restriction. There's often geographic restrictions on our reporting projects, but not always. So it's super important to understand that one aspect before you pitch. I think I get pretty regular basis. I'll get pitches they're good pitches. The story ideas are good, but it's a region that I don't cover at all, or it's a region that Mongabay doesn't really cover. So just definitely read these descriptions and get a really good sense of, what are we looking for and where. And this global forest description, you see, it goes into quite a bit of detail. And all of these project descriptions encompass things like how are the pay rates going to work? Do we reimburse for expenses and travel? Which, yes, we do. And how to submit the pitch. And at the bottom of this page, there's my email, the email address of the editor overseeing the project usually. And then there's a place where you can submit your pitch. And it's again, Willie, can you see this page, the screen that I'm sharing? So this is what our pitch form looks like. It's a place for your name, your email, your just really basic information. And then we ask for at least 2 media outlets where your work has been published, some links to some of your published stories, a resume or CV, some experience, just so we can get to know you a bit. And then you submit, along with this, you submit, your pitch for whatever the story is. And then it comes into our email inbox directly to the editor overseeing. So I know that can seem like kind of an impersonal process, and a lot of reporters like to directly email an editor and have a relationship. And relationships are really important to Mongabay staff as well. With our contributor network, we really emphasize having a relationship with contributors. It's not just, hey, write this one article and we'll see you again. Never. We really want to get to know who we're working with and understand also what you're trying to achieve, because like I mentioned at the beginning, it's not always the case that that the folks who pitch us are necessarily freelance journalists who want to get hired for a job. Sometimes people want to write a commentary piece, that kind of thing. And but today, for the purpose of the discussion, we're going to mainly cover the processes and procedures and questions for freelance journalists. So I hope everybody is okay with that, and you can I think everybody is in this call is probably extremely intelligent, and you can just kind of figure out based on what we're saying today. I think you'll be able to, if you're not a full-time freelance journalist, you'll still be able to draw a lot of info out of what we discussed that can help you contribute or write for Mongabay if that's what you're looking to do. So let me just, Willie, could I pass the baton to you for a second while I look over this file and just see what the next?
Sure.
Right, go ahead. Oh, I wanted to, Willie, can we go over quickly? There's one thing I think is super important for people to do is sign up for our newsletter. The Mongabay newsletter has a lot of, good information in about what we're covering, what we're highlighting, what we're super proud of it. And then that sign up also gets you announcements for when there's a new project, a new announcement. Could you maybe just talk about that briefly, the newsletter?
Yeah, so there are 2 points that I can mention. I think one of the things about Genevieve's project specifically, and how there's the list of countries. If you click on one of those countries, it actually brings you to Mongabay's coverage of those countries. And our goal with more of our opportunities pages is to make it really easy to check in on what we're reporting on, because that's a really important aspect of crafting a good pitch, is recognizing the things that have already been published. And it demonstrates a certain level of, experience with us, and that you're paying attention to the types of things that we're prioritizing. So I think it is useful to take a look at that stuff. And you can see here, this specific combination is about forests and Brazil. So a little pro tip is that in Mongabay's website, if you look at the URL and you have this /list, you can stack topics and terms like keywords for Mongabay and create a custom list of the types of stories that we've been covering. So like the example there being forest plus Brazil. And we have a couple places to sign up for newsletters. Most of them are on mongabay.org, where Genevieve is showing you now. And there is specifically in the opportunity section a newsletter sign up, I believe. So, are you ready again, Jen?
Apologies, I was muted and I didn't realize it. Yeah, not mongabay.com, mongabay.org. It's a pretty important distinction, and I think it will save a lot of time and energy just to make, understand the distinction between those two sites. When you're, doing preliminary research and seeing if we've covered something, and also seeing what's open and what's available. We get a lot of questions that are more general that I think could be pretty easily answered from accessing these sites and tools. So yeah, just mongabay.com and mongabay.org are kind of two different toolboxes in a way. If you think of it that way, I think, it's a bit easier to understand the difference between the two. Okay, so one last thing before we start to discuss, just have some back and forth questions, kind of open it up to more discussion. Just fees, I just want to sort of get that out of the way now. It's case by case basis that how, what we pay per article, how each project is being run and what's been pitched. It's like everything plays into the fee that the reporter is paid per story. So it's just really case by case basis, but Mongabay pays competitive rates. Our rates have gone up significantly over the last 5 years. If you look at the trajectory, it's like a pretty steady increase. And we're really committed to paying reporters a fair wage. And we really try our best to, work with reporters to make sure that, they're happy with the rate and we're happy. It's definitely something that, it's case by case basis. And we also reimburse for expenses when we sent reporters. Obviously nobody's traveling right now, hopefully. But when reporters do go to the field and incur expenses for travel and food and that kind of thing, we reimburse for that. So usually folks will pay out of pocket and they'll front the money and then provide expenses and receipts, and we'll reimburse. And commentaries, I might need you to clarify this one. It's a pretty common question. If a commentary or something like that, where it's more of an expert take on something and it's not necessarily a research reported article, those typically don't pay, right? It's more of a partnership kind of agreement.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, typically the types of commentaries that we receive, they are trying to make an argument of some kind, usually from an expert type of position. And I think we get typically 6 to 8 commentary submissions per day. So, we don't typically pay for them, and we don't really edit them very much other than, some basic fact checking. But we try to have the commentaries be published in the voice of their authors, not being, representative of Mongabay. And so, we don't pay for commentary.
Okay, so and then the one other thing, thank you, Willie. And then one other thing I want to mention is just translations. I mentioned this at the beginning, but we publish in, how many languages are we publishing in now?
9.
9 languages. So some of them, just for the purposes, call, like, say if you're bilingual and you speak Spanish and English and you'd like to report on something, but you want to have it appear in both languages, you can submit. I've had reporters submit in 2 languages. We also translate, and we translate from English to other languages and from other languages to English. So it's a pretty, I think it's a good thing to think of too, is whether at the outset, whether a piece has the potential for republication, and whether the reach of what you're proposing in your pitch sort of warrants that. And yeah, we do a lot of translations. So that's the basics. In terms of just the logistics of pitching, we're going to try to put together, we don't have something right now to share with you all, but we're working on putting together a couple of sample pitches that can show you different types of, the types of pitches that we really like and what sort of works really well for us in terms of catching our attention. And Mongabay editors tend to like the pitches. I can't speak for every editor, but I could just say in general that, the more the subject, the more obvious it will be. The more obvious it'll be to us that you're kind of, qualified. When you make the pitch, make sure that you make it clear your area of expertise. Those, for me, I really like those kind of pitches where it's very clear that the person understands in depth the subject matter and has been following it. That's really helpful. And obviously, the same things that would be applicable to any freelance pitch, kind of short and sweet, but we also really like to know who you would be interviewing or who you have interviewed already. Sometimes we get pitches with the reporter has been working on the story already and then is looking for a home for it. Who you would interview. And since this is an environmental and science publication, it's, obviously heavy emphasis on just really having independent sources who can comment on the overall issue without sort of being involved with it. And I think there's a little bit higher level of discipline in that than in a generic sort of pitch. We really want to have a more scientific approach might be a good way to say it, or just a more fastidious approach in making sure that the expert viewpoint on the science side of things is really well done. And so pitches just need to reflect the expertise and the level of knowledge you have about the subject.